What's up, guys? This is another episode of the Entrepreneur Enthusiast. I have Makan.
Yes.
Ooh, said it right on the first time.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
I have Makan on the line. Makan, where? I know you say you're in San Francisco. Are you originally from Bay Area?
No, I'm actually originally from the city where the car company Volvo comes from, which is Gothenburg, Sweden.
Yeah, Gothenburg.
So I moved to the US in 2014.
Nice. Okay. So you moved in the US as times got crazy, and then you stuck through it through COVID.
Yeah.
How's that transition been?
I feel like the US has changed a lot in the last 7 years. You know, just with politics, with the pandemic. A lot of things have changed, but I love it. I think it's been really, really awesome.
I can imagine for you, it's literally like it's like been black and white, like how everything has changed overnight with things. But you know, that's the beauty of being out here. Was San Francisco the first place you went to?
I actually started my US living situation, so to speak, in Boston, or just outside Boston, in Cambridge.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Okay. I like Boston. I like Martha's Vineyard.
I've never been, but
yeah, I'm from LA, so I don't like the Celtics at all.
Okay.
I'm a Tom Brady fan, so I like the Patriots.
Yeah.
I like Tom Brady, not necessarily Patriots, but so big city, Boston to San Francisco. Did you fly to San Francisco? Or did you drive?
I did. I still really would love to do, coast to coast drive, just going through more states, but I haven't done it yet. I think maybe something for next year or the year after.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm outside in my state in Atlanta. I just drove here from LA a few weeks ago. My family, we drove. We have a Tesla. We have the self-driving, so we drove it from LA all the way to Atlanta. So it took 4 days to complete the drive. But it was. But we have kids, so we got to stop all the time. But it was a really nice. I would say the drive was really relaxing, and for me, driving has always been like a stress reliever to catch my balance. Being an entrepreneur is very important for me to be at a balance because we operate at such a high level, but our mental state as well needs to perform at a high level as well. I always am looking for ways how to make my mental strong, how to understand my brain and just be able to relax. Just being, black in America, being in America, just being an entrepreneur, being a dad, being a millennial. There's so many hats that I have to wear that I see. And we talked about the homelessness. I see people that look like me that aren't able to handle those things. They aren't able to over that hump. They aren't able to go in and I would say get over that mental hump. So tell me what it is that you guys do and why do you guys looking to offer this to the marketplace?
Yeah. So maybe I start by describing why we're doing it, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what it is we're doing. So when I was in high school in Sweden, I suffered from what I now understand is social anxiety. I didn't know that's what it was called. And I remember back then I did many times think about going to talk to our therapist that was visiting our school twice a week. But I never did because of, worry that another student would find out or just what it meant to talk to a therapist, just like the stigma that comes with that and still does.
And that level of emotionalism that we don't want to let that out. That vulnerability is kind of hard.
Exactly. And I think especially being in high school, it's so important to fit in. I think you're always worried that you're the odd one out, so to speak. So I think it makes it even more difficult. Then a couple of years later, I did eventually go and I did see a therapist, and it was one of those life-changing events, I would say. I was very lucky to talk to a therapist that was really good at social anxiety. But the problem of not having access to a therapist or not feeling comfortable talking to a therapist have stayed with me since. So what we're doing at Meomind, the company that I started together with two other co-founders, is that we're trying to help people who don't have access to a therapist, who don't feel comfortable, by letting them listen in on pre-recorded therapy sessions between real licensed therapists and people similar to you. And the way we do that is essentially when you're signing up on the app, we're asking you a few questions, and based on the answers, we're matching you to the most relevant sessions in the library. So our goal is always that you're listening to a session that feels so familiar to you that even though the stories are always slightly different between everyone, at least there's so much commonality that you get a lot of value out of listening to the session without actually being in a therapy session yourself.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. One thing I learned from, pre-pandemic, as an entrepreneur, I would find challenges. And one thing that helped me, I would travel globally and I would go to all these conferences and I would meet individuals that were just like me that had the same issues and dealings that I was dealing with. And social anxiety is a huge one because you never know what to say or how to say it or how someone's going to take something. And it's kind of hard to go in rooms and speak to people openly and candidly. And not everyone I call it a gift because some people just have that gift where they're able to fill the room and move the room. But some people have to fill the room, especially now post-COVID. So the ideal customer, it's interesting. It always starts with ourselves. So the ideal customer is you. And so now that you guys are going to market, what ideally would be the goal for the customer base that you guys are trying to obtain?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because obviously mental health is something that affects all ages and, all types of demographics. But we see that there is a lot of need in the demographics that maybe have less money just to be able to afford a therapist. So you're talking people in their 20s. We actually have a lot of people who download the app that are in high school or early college also. So that's one group. And then I would also say groups in society there where essentially therapy is not something that is openly talked about. There's particularly strong stigma. So, based on our research, we find that, for example, it's much more common for women to openly talk about challenges than men. I think there's a lot of notions of as a man you have to be certain ways and be strong. Why do you think that is? And I'm asking from a perspective of an American brute that's like, oh, I'm big and tough, strong. I don't need anybody, but why because coming from where you come from and now seeing that now here, where do you think that comes from? It's a good question. Like, where does it come from originally? And like, why is it that men have different expectations on them than women? And maybe it just lives from the times when men were the breadwinners and had to just get through stuff. You could not stay home because you had a bad day, because that would probably mean less food on the table. But now times have changed, and maybe it just takes some time for the cultural shift to happen as well. Maybe
there's this book I read, and it is called The Man Box. And it basically is like all the emotions that a man is supposed to feel in this box. And I've learned through my progression that a lot of times as men, we may be mad, or we may be sad, but that's the only feeling we know. So us being sad makes us mad, angry, have anxiety, hungry. It's all those things. So we don't know how to decipher what those feelings are. And in a lot of state, the most vulnerable person that I've been able to be with is my mother. And I think that's a commonality amongst most men, to be vulnerable with their mother. And I find it in different cultures are different. And for example, I spent a lot of time in Japan, and they have one of the higher suicide rates in Japan. Mm-hmm. But when you go there, you see that the man works his butt off for like 12-hour days. They can't go home unless the boss go home. If the boss goes out and gets drinks, they have to go out and get drinks. And so these guys are literally out in the street sometimes drunken, and you'll see them passed out. They have to wake up, put their suit on, and go back to work. And that's a high level of anxiety, but that still is a culture that may say, well, so what about your mental health? So what do you guys say to that? Because there are certain cultures that are so strong in that belief of you have no right to feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I often think about when you get sick and there's something wrong with you physically. I think very few people would feel that there is a risk people would blame them for suddenly coming down with a disease. I think we understand that it's out of your control and there's nothing weird about it. Mental health, I view the same way. I mean, no one chooses to be anxious and no one chooses to be depressed. I think it's really, obviously, it's a combination of your genetics and your upbringing and circumstances. But I think the common thread is that it's not in your control. I think you can regain some of that control, though, by actually being very open and vulnerable with what you're going through. And that's what I think was the big journey for me. I think the moment I started to own my story and stop shying away from it, that's when social anxiety stopped having power over me. It was no longer something that I had to try to avoid, just like how you accept the fact that you have a cold or a broken ankle or whatever it might be.
I mean, and even in the space now, I mean, you're the CEO of a company. That's a whole nother level of mental anxiety. So let's backtrack for a while. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
I think so. At least back to high school, I remember. Or maybe even earlier. What was like the first entrepreneurial job or endeavor? So when I was in, what do you call it in the US before high school? Is it middle school?
Yeah.
Middle school. When I was in middle school, I became really obsessed with handheld computers. This is before smartphones, obviously. So you could walk around with these Palm Pilots, as they were called. You might remember. So I was very obsessed with that. So I created a website in Swedish. And had a little bit of ad revenue, very little, but for a 16-year-old, I guess it was pretty cool. And that was my first entrepreneurial endeavor, I would say.
Nice. And so to come from Sweden to the States and to be in this world of the venture capitalists, how was that? Because that's like a rocket ship of a transition. Did you just jump into it, or you came here and went to school? What was your middle school per se, and become CEO of the company?
Yeah, for me it was two things. I mean, I did study in the US. I went to Stanford's MBA program, which is, because of its proxy to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, it's just naturally more focused on entrepreneurship. A lot of the professors, a lot of the just alumni, they are in that ecosystem. So I think naturally it makes you think about it a lot, and you have a lot of just people to talk to. But equally, if not more important for me, was my first job after grad school, which was at a company which is called Homebase. And you might know about them. They're helping small businesses. Company. Exactly. Yeah. A fantastic company, both for the companies they're serving, but also for its employees. It's led by a duo of co-founders who are very entrepreneurial, and they were the perfect teachers for me.
Yeah.
So I did that for 3.5 years, and that was my job just before starting Meomind.
So you mentioned something. You went to grad school at Stanford to emphasize on entrepreneurship. And you went and worked for a company that had that startup feel. So you got the experience from them. How would you say? Because my path was a little different. I went to school in the South. I went to Prairie View A&M, and then I learned about tech on YouTube. And just started learning how to code, learning how to design, learning SEO and stuff like that. I've always looked on the outside in. What would you say to someone that was trying to get in tech, but wasn't in the ladder of growing into tech?
Yeah. I think
San Francisco.
I don't know if that's necessary, but I think it definitely helps to be in an ecosystem when there are a lot of just other people who are doing something in the field. Yeah. But I think now with so much being available online, I think honestly there is not so much that I don't think you could learn over YouTube or the other learning platforms online. Thankfully, and that was probably not the case 10, 20 years ago. And the same thing with ecosystems. I mean, I actually found my co-founder on a website called Co-Founder Lab. So we even, that's how we got to know each other really. But then we also realized we had a lot of friends in common. But I would say don't let it hold you back. The fact that wherever you are, I mean, as long as you have access to a computer and you are in the mindset that you're passionate about something, I think that's all you need. Man,
that's you said it right there. It doesn't matter where you are. I have one of my teammates, he's a back-end team member. He's in India, and this dude knows how to code and do websites. Me and him would talk every day. Shout out to Cofield. We would talk every day about building websites, and he motivates me, and I don't think he realizes it because he's in a third world country, and all he has is his computer set up, and he's working day and night with his computer set up with just the most humane environment, and he's not giving up. He's continuing to go on his task and go, and I think that gets lost in translation with entrepreneurs. So during this period, how long have you guys been doing this?
So we started January 1st, essentially this year. So now it's been, 9 months. Mm-hmm. Our first version of the app was released in March though. So it's been 7 months, I would say, since the launch.
Got it. And with that, was there ever a point to getting to launch? Because this is your baby.
Yeah.
Was there a time where you wanted to kind of digress and quit and not move forward?
Yeah, I think maybe not to the point where I've been wanting to quit, but it's definitely been ups and downs for sure. And that's why I think finding something you're passionate about is very important. I think for some people, maybe the notion of being able to build something that you can make a lot of money from in itself is enough to drive you. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if on top of that, you have something that you also believe in, even if you did not get paid, I think that's when you're just going to do whatever it takes to make it work because you're enjoying the time most of the time as you're doing it.
That's another, I would say mental luxury to be able to be in the space to do what you love and understand. Because I have multiple friends that are say this is what they want to do in society, whatever it is. And my rebuttal to them is always, you're actually doing that. You just have quantified it and done it to the level that you wanted to do to monetize it, but you're actually doing it. And so it gets to that point where if you're doing something for fun, you don't really realize you're doing it. And then it does become work. As you get your investors, you get your co-founder, now you have to have a return on everything. So now in that phase, how do you overcome, not being here, being in Boston, being in Stanford, now working for a company, and now saying, I'm the boss and I make the decisions go into your company. How do you talk to that, and how you're planning to project this to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to build really a mental health platform that offers high quality, scalable solutions. Because I think the problem right now is not that there are not help out there. The problem is there's not enough, and it's not scalable. So naturally, a minority of people really have access to those solutions. So our vision is to continue down the path of building that. And we hired our first employees earlier this year. So naturally, it's been an interesting learning to become,
congratulations,
an employer for the first time. Yeah. But it happened very organically. It was like, I didn't even realize it happened in a way. Like, I feel, especially since our team is still small, we're still operating very much like colleagues. And I think that's important too, to get the most out of everyone's talent, is to just work as a team with as little hierarchy as possible. So that part has maybe not been so different.
Well, I mean, you worked with HR company, so you have some experience. I mean, my experience of hiring people has been up and down. Like, I love people, so I don't like to fire people. I like to give people a chance, but you're supposed to fire fast. So that's like a whole thing within itself. When it comes down to the outreach and how you guys are rolling out this platform for the people that need it, like I said, I found it because I'm big on mental health. I've been through. I speak a lot of time on this podcast. About 7 years ago, I was driving Uber full time, and I have 580 credit score. I had my master's. I was not getting hired for any job for whatever reason. I just couldn't. I just didn't know what to do. So I started Uber driving 50 hours a week. Best time of my life, because it's the only job where I just didn't have to worry about anything. I pick somebody up, drop them off, and then I was able to go back and reflect and think about myself and where I wanted to be. And I realized I live in a society that sets a bar for me that I have to reach, rather than me setting a bar for myself that I want to reach. And once I was able to gain that anxiety was released from me, and through the Uber car, I started traveling because I was making good money Uber driving. I started traveling in countries, and I would talk and meet with different CEOs and entrepreneurs and learn from them and grow from them. And I got a good, clear perspective of what it really meant to be an entrepreneur, and it helped me normalize myself. A lot of my peers don't have that same ability to be able to do that and understand that. And so I'm always outspoken about check your mental health, check your mind, like get some rest, meditate, and things like that. I did my first therapy session 6-8 months ago. With a real therapist. And it was the best thing for my life, because as in my culture, Black men don't get therapy because we feel like we could just talk to ourselves, or somebody else is like, who am I to say my problems are worse than somebody else? But I learned that it's not about that. It's learned talking through those things, and that was one of the best things I ever did with my life, because I was able to openly talk and understand myself, and I grew from that. How are you guys rolling out this so that this information, it's like for my younger self, is able to get this type of information, get these types of apps? Because I know kids these days are like, they have a lot to deal with COVID, anxiety, and guns at school and stuff like that.
That's a great question. I think the last 8-9 months, it's been we've been lucky in the sense that our app has been it's been like going up in the search results. I know you've done a lot of SEO, Joe, so you know this, but But essentially, I don't really know exactly why it happened, but now the app is like in top 10 if you search for therapy in the App Store, in the Google Play Store. So that's kind of been just a lucky thing for us, and that's how a lot of people are finding it. But I think you're right. Like, how do you reach out to the right people when there's so much noise out there? And I think it depends a little bit on which group you're targeting. I think for younger people, we might go via schools. For slightly older people, it would be maybe more through your employer. And then on top of that, just the self-discovery and the word of mouth.
Nice. And so with that, I mean, to add to that, there's different, I would say, and not race culture, but different cultures. Like, you have your high school kids, your middle school kids, your young adults, your millennials, your business owners. Are there different therapy sessions to kind of pack out for the different dealings people are going with culturally to kind of translate to them?
Yeah, no, that's so important. Like what you're just mentioning now, and every week we're adding more and more sessions to cover more and more ground, like you mentioned. Yeah. And one thing that we're focusing on a lot right now is topics on identity, topics of discrimination. That's actually literally earlier this week an initiative that we kicked off, just because we realize how important it is to have the right therapy sessions matching your identity and your cultural background, and to some extent ethnicity too. So more and more is being added every week, and we're covering more and more of that.
Nice. What has something that when you go to work, what is one thing about this project that brings a big smile on your face?
That's definitely when you hear the end users, so the listeners, share their feedback. So, for example, yesterday in our product meeting, we had one of our users dial in on Zoom as a guest. We try to do that on Wednesday mornings. And just the way she described how Meomind has helped her is definitely what keeps you going. Because those stories are so powerful. And you realize that they've had a very tough time getting to where they are now. Through a lot of other like failed initiatives, or like trying to find a therapist without succeeding, things like that.
Why Meomind?
For me or for them?
Meo.
Oh, you mean the name?
The name. Yeah.
So we wanted to have a name that had mind in it, because obviously we're a mental health startup, and then me, because at the end of the day it is your journey. And the O, I don't have a good explanation for the O, but play with segments of words, and then it came together as Meomind.
Meomind.
If any of the listeners have an idea of a different name, definitely let us know.
We will. I purposely wanted to use the app after I spoke with you, so I will definitely, because I'm big on listening, big on reviews. And I have a drive home. I got to drive back to California, so I have nothing to do but to listen.
4 days of driving.
4 days of driving again, so I have time. Well, I get to stop, and I get to go. One place I get to go is New Orleans for a buddy of mine wedding, and New Orleans is a great city. Then
love that.
I'm going to Dallas for a tech conference. I get to go to a tech conference for automations and stuff like that. But in between there, so it's going to be a 2-week journey home.
A little bit further than 4 days, so a little bit longer.
During that journey home, I will tap into that space, because it's very important for me, like I said, as a high level entrepreneur, a father, business owner, a husband, a black man in society, all these things that are just this pillars on my back that I would deeply cause me stress. These are things that I personally deal with, and I think your app has a lot of potential to continue to grow amongst all communities, because especially in a time like this, it's needed. And like you mentioned that you may not know why you guys are the highest app. The easiest part is you don't really have to talk to someone. You just listen to someone. So with that, how does the pricing model work? How does someone go and sign up and get set up with you guys' app?
Yeah, well, as of right now, it's actually completely free. So anyone who has an iPhone or an Android phone is able to download the app and use it. And we're in a stage now where for us it's very important to get as much feedback as possible to build something that is more and more effective, more and more powerful. And the users have been tremendously helpful so far. It's been super awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad we live in a time now where mental health is a serious topic, where you're able to express that. I grew up, I mean, you and I both, you seen the same age, grew up looking at our fathers, and I'm sure your father's just as hard as mine as a rock, and they don't know how to express their emotions. They always look like this all the day, these stubborn old men. And I'm glad we live in a time where things like this are readily available at the tip of your fingers. I can go ahead and download therapy sessions that I can listen to and get some insight. And I think your app is going to prevail. I love what you guys are doing. And I appreciate you for coming on the pod and giving us some insight. So if people want to download you guys, where would they go? I know it's free. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
It's go to meomind.com. They go to the App Store and they just download.
Yeah, the easiest is to just go to the App Store, search for Meomind, and just download it from there. Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate, Joe, you inviting me, and really been awesome to hear about your story as well. And like you said, wearing a lot of hats. I think one of those hats that I might wear soon, or not soon, but sometime in the future, will be the dad hat. And I'm so impressed by the people who are able to manage everything in their life and then take on this new responsibility. I don't know how you all are doing it, but I'll probably be in touch when it's time for me.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Entrepreneur Enthusiast. Makan, it was a great episode. Hopefully after, I'm going to listen to the app and have some time with it, and we can get you back on so I can give you just direct feedback with my experience. And I'm going to tell all my friends, family, and my followers about it. So you guys tap in to this app, Meomind, great app, social anxiety, mental health, all those things to help you get over that hump of just becoming your true self. You guys tap into the Entrepreneur Enthusiast. Thank you guys.